Hey guys, Telegram Sam here. If you don't already know, I have an Instagram. It's Telegram underscore Sam underscore vinyl. So if you're on Instagram, check me out on there. But today's video, I'm talking about my 5 all-time favorite albums. I've been wanting to do a top 10 list for a really long time, but as my music palette is expanding and growing, as I'm getting introduced to all these new genres, decades, artists, I find that pretty much everything after my top 5 is constantly changing. But my top 5 has kind of always consecutively been the same because a lot of these albums were the first albums I really started listening to as an early teenager when I really started diving in to music. And yeah, they've just always been the records I just go to in my collection when I'm like, I just don't know what to listen to. I know this will make me happy, make me feel good. And that's also another thing. Like when I'm like, oh my god, this is a really good album. For me, all-time favorite album is an album that I never get bored with, even after thousands of times of listening to it. I never get bored with it. I always find something new about it. And just consecutively as an album, I just think flows very nicely. But yeah, let's just get started. Let's just dig into it. Number 5. This one's probably the newest addition to this list. But yeah, it's just one of the all-time greats. Number 5, Little Girl Blue, Nina Simone. This originally came out in 1959, and this is her debut album. I mean, Nina Simone is a recent discovery for me. I think I really started listening to her about 4 or 5 years ago. But ever since then, she's just quickly become one of my all-time favorite artists. And out of every album I've listened to from her, this one has just always been my favorite. There's just something about it that is just so beautiful. Like, it doesn't sound like a debut album to me. It just sounds so sophisticated and well-rounded. And she is just such an amazing singer. She uses her instrument, her voice as an instrument, and her piano playing is amazing, and you really get to hear her piano playing on here. That's what she originally wanted to be. She wanted to be like a orchestral piano player. She never even really wanted to be a singer. That's just kind of what ended up happening to her. But man, this album is just so killer. I mean, you got Don't Smoke in Bed, He Needs Me, Little Girl Blue, My Baby Just Cares for Me. One of my all-time favorite songs, Plain Gold Ring. I just love that song. It's just so beautiful, and just so, it just like gets you in a mood, like like you feel her pain of like wanting someone so bad, but like respecting the fact that they're married or that they're taken or like what have you, that you just can't have them. I Loves You, Porgy, Central Park Blues. I just love this album. Just one of my all-time favorites from one of the greatest artists ever. Just even outside of music, she was just such a badass woman, especially a woman of color during the 50s and 60s, being so outspoken both in the civil rights movement, but for women's rights. It's just mind-blowing, and she's just one of the greatest women of all time, just one of the greatest artists of all time. So number 4, just one of the most influential albums for me, and I'm wearing a Blondie shirt right now. This is my copy of Parallel Lines by Blondie. This originally came out in 1978, and this is their third album. This is one of the first 5 records I ever bought. I found this at my local thrift store back in my hometown, small hometown in Washington, for 99 cents. I almost didn't even look to see what it was because it didn't have the cover, but I saw that it was Parallel Lines by Blondie and got it. I think I bought this before I even had a record player, but of course I knew who Blondie was through like one way or another, like Heart Glass, which is on this album. But when I listened to this album, I was like, God, this is so much more than just those hit songs. Like, it has a pop, rock, punk thing, and also had sort of throwbacks to like the early 60s like girl groups like the Ronettes, the Shangri-Las. that a lot of other punk bands sort of tapped into, like the Ramones and the New York Dolls. It's just such a great album. Like the opening track, Hanging on the Telephone, which I believe is a cover of a song by The Nerves, I think. But that was just such a great opening. Like One Way or Another, Picture This, Fade Away and Radiate, love that song. Sunday Girl, Heart of Glass, I'm Gonna Look To, Just Go Away. I just love this album. I just never get tired of listening to it. Yeah, it's just my tried and true copy. I do want to find a copy that, actually has a cover, but even if I did, I would never get rid of this because it's just so sentimental to me. Like the hours I've spent as a teenager in my room listening to this record over and over again, doing my makeup like Debbie Harry and like just trying to be her because I just thought she was so fucking cool. She was like Marilyn Monroe, but like she looked like she could fight you too. I just love that, and I've always loved that aesthetic, and just love this album. Just amazing. Next up, number 3 is Kick by INXS. This originally came out in 1987. This was their 6th album. It's funny because I was introduced through INXS through my mom. I remember VH1 Classic. I don't even know if that's like a TV channel anymore. But they would play one of their concerts. I don't even remember what the concert was. I just remember Michael Hutchence wearing a black long sleeve shirt, and he was wearing these pants that were like the American flag. I don't know if any of you know what concert I'm talking about, but that used to play all the time on VH1 Classic, and my mom would always watch it, and I would watch it with her. And I remember going to an antique store very young, and just seeing this, and it was like $5. I was like, why not? I think I had just gotten my record player. Again, one of the first 10 or 20 records I ever bought. Yeah, and I just fell in love with it. I was like, oh yeah, it has like New Sensation, Need You Tonight, Never Tear Us Apart, their hits. But Guns in the Sky, Devil Inside, that is like such a sexy song. Mediate, Loved One, Mystify, probably one of my all-time favorite INXS songs. Kick, Calling All Nations, Tiny Daggers. It is just one of the most perfect pop, rock, new wave 80s albums ever. And INXS is just one of the most underrated bands. I'm so happy, like, through the vinyl community that they're kind of getting the love and attention that they finally deserved as a band. They're not just seen as like, oh yeah, they were like a great 80s band that put out, a couple good songs. But it's like every album I've heard from them, I've really enjoyed and loved. And this will just be one of my all-time favorites from them. And just, it never fails. Number 2, probably not that much of a surprise since I've been talking about this album a lot lately, but this is Tattoo You, the Rolling Stones. It originally came out in 1981. This was their 18th US album, I think their 16th UK album, but I don't know, I'm not necessarily the biggest Rolling Stones fan, but there's something about this record that just hits me in a way I just can't, that like no other rock album compares. It's just like bluesy hard rock at moments, and then like pop, and then you get some like ambient synth pop albums like Heaven. Like that is such a ahead of its time song. It kind of has like a shoegaze feel to it. And then Waiting on a Friend, No Use in Crying, Pops, that is one of my all-time favorite Rolling Stones songs. Or not Pops, Tops. Worried About You, Neighbors, Little TNA, Keith Richards, Little Tits and Ass. Slave, like, God, that is such a hard rock, bluesy, just sexy song. I mean, Start Me Up is probably my least favorite song on here, but still, it just flows so nicely as an album. It has its, like, slower moments, then it goes to its hard rock moments, like, it just really flows so greatly as an album. And I'm kind of glad when they did the remaster and reissue of it last year that this album kind of got the attention that it deserves as a Rolling Stones album. I feel like it kind of gets thrown away in their discography. It's like their last great album, but to me this is like their greatest album. Just an album I just love, again, an album I found very early on when I started collecting records. I think everyone just kind of naturally goes to what got them excited about music when it comes to their all-time favorite albums. Again, I found this $2 at a thrift store early on when I started collecting music and records. And I don't know, it's just always been one of my all-time favorites. And last but not least, number one, probably no surprise if you've been watching my channel for all of 10 minutes. Raw Power, Iggy and the Stooges. Originally came out in 1973. This was their third album. I mean, this is cited as the first punk rock album, and I definitely agree with that. I mean, James Williamson's guitar playing on here is just so revolutionary, and it's cemented what would become the guitar rock sound that punk rock is very notable for, and what, you know, makes punk rock punk is the very rhythmic, heavy, like no breaths taken rock guitar playing. And before the first two albums that the Stooges did had Ron Ashton playing, and he was kind of more psych groove of a guitar player, but this just completely changed the game. I mean, as soon as you hear that opening guitar riff to Search and Destroy, and then hear Iggy sing, "I'm a street walking cheetah with a heart full of napalm," if that doesn't move you or affect you in some way, you're not alive. Like, that completely changed me. Like, this album changed the way I listen to music. It completely changed my life in general. It kind of made me realize, like, wow, like, music can really make you feel something. It can really make you think, especially like punk rock for me. It made me realize that, you know, life is short. Do what you want. Do what makes you happy. Don't do what other people want you to do. Just do stuff that fulfills you, makes you feel excited and alive. Like, you only got one life to live, so you might as well live it for yourself. And I don't know, that album kind of clicked that on for me as an early teen, kind of figuring out who I am, what I want to be. And this is the album that kind of made me realize, like, I love music. It's my life. I want to dedicate my life to it, and I'm kind of on that path, and it's brought me nothing but a great community, great friends, great knowledge, and a sense of constantly wanting to learn more about music, about myself, about what music does for other people. So I really owe that to this album. It'll be one of my all-time greats forever, no matter what new music I discover. But yeah, this will always be number one for me, so yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know some of your all-time favorite albums. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.